Science of Winning Podcast, episode number 4. Hello and welcome back once again to the Science of Winning Podcast, your number one source for learning how to win in your sport, where each week we dive into the minds of championship-winning athletes and coaches to discover how champions think and what they do to achieve athletic success. I am your host, Lyndon Gortney. If you are ready to dominate your position, outsmart your opponents, crush the competition, win more games, and achieve your athletic goals, then I have a free gift for you. Head on over to sportstrainingsecrets.com, where you can download the first 3 chapters of my book, How to Win at Sports, 10 Proven Principles Marines Use to Win in Battle. Well, we are glad you were here with us today at the Science of Winning. To get started, I want to tell you a little bit more about our mission. Once again, our mission is to teach athletes and coaches how to win in their sport. Our objective is to get real, measurable results for athletes and coaches. Now, we have got a goal. Our goal, are you ready for this? Is to get 1,000 testimonials from athletes and coaches who have applied these proven principles of winning and gotten real results. We want you to head over to our Facebook page, go to facebook.com/Science of Winning Podcast, and leave us a note. Give us a short little story of a success or a victory you have had as a result of applying these winning principles. Now, it doesn't matter how big or how small these victories are. You know, a small victory you might have might be that during a game you found your opponent's weakness and started exploiting it, and that you had success against them. Another victory might be that you found your opponent's strength and started shutting it down and actually kept them from scoring as many points as they did before. Another small victory could be that you might be winning the first 4 games of the season, or that you've won against a team on their home field, or maybe you've beat a team that you've never beat before. Larger victories you might experience are maybe winning a tournament or winning a state championship. Maybe you earned all tournament or all state individual awards this year. Another large victory could be that you won all conference, or that you earned a scholarship to go to college and play your sport. Or it could even be that you got signed with a professional sports team. Whatever your victory is, we want to celebrate it and use it as a motivational tool to help others accomplish their dreams as well. So once again, head over to our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Science of Winning Podcast, and leave us a note telling us how you applied these principles and what results you received from using them. All right, as always, we want to go ahead and start our podcast by recapping the last episode, just so you can get some repetition in, get some reps in, and so these concepts will stick with you, so you can remember them, and most importantly, so that you can use them. So here we go, recapping the last episode. We talked about sticking with what's working. Basically, what this means is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You've got to find out what is working in this game today against this team, and this game today against the opponent facing you, across from you, guarding you, that you're guarding. And you've got to find out what's working against them and use it and stick with it. A lot of coaches like to, and even players do this too, they like to switch things up way too much, and they get away from what's working. We talked about how some teams, we gave an example of the OU football team from the last few years, how they were having amazing success moving the ball down the field using a no-huddle, hurry-up, spread offense, passing the ball right through their opponents, cutting them like a hot knife through butter. It was just impressive. But then they would switch things up. Once they would get down into the red zone, they stopped doing what's working, and they tried something else, and it fell apart. And they performed way below their potential. They could have easily won a national championship, but because of the way they did not stick with what's working, they fell far short. We also learned how that Marines, when they go into battle, they get debriefed from the off-going Marines that they're coming in to replace to learn what's working now against their enemy. Even though they may have been there before, they need to know what's actually working today, not the last time they were actually deployed over there in theater. We also learned that a lot of coaches and athletes don't even pay attention. They're not even aware of what's working against their opponents. They're more focused on running their play or making sure everybody's in the right position than actually looking at the opponent to see what's working. We learned the 2 keys to sticking with what's working is having a good memory, being aware, looking at and remembering what's succeeding and what's failing, and trying to do more of what's succeeding. We also learned that The second part is having a good stats keeper or data keeper that writes down these things so that you don't have to memorize them all and remember them every single time, but you can actually look back and see it in writing so you can discover what's been working. Lastly, we had about 5 or 6 questions that help you discover what's working so that you can stick with it. If you have not heard this episode, or if you'd like to get a refresher, you can go back and re-listen to episode number 3 so you can learn the second principle, stick with what's working. Well, today we are talking about the 4th proven principle of winning in sports, and that is to find your opponent's strength and neutralize it, to identify their strength and shut it down. Now, I want to start with telling you a story about the Marines. When Marines go into battle, they want to identify what the enemy has that will hurt them the most, and then they want to take it out. If you saw the movie Saving Private Ryan, you saw an example of a bunch of military members hitting the beach and immediately being attacked by the enemy. They had to seek cover and quickly assess the situation to identify where the biggest threat was coming from so they could take it out. Now, in that movie, it was a World War II movie, and one of the big strengths that the opponents had was something called a pillbox. They had machine guns planted in these concrete little rooms with just a tiny window, a very small sliver of a window, where they could get their machine gun barrel out so that they would be protected from the attacking enemy's advances, but they could also see a big broad area and attack anybody who was coming onto the beach. So our U.S. forces had just hit the beach, and immediately the pillbox machine guns started opening fire. Well, the U.S. Army and the U.S. military, their first objective was to identify those pillboxes as the biggest threat and then discover a plan to neutralize them. And once they were able to start neutralizing those pillboxes, then they were able to finally break through and capture the beach. Now, many times, depending on the mission, the Marines will identify all kinds of strengths from their opponent. Sometimes it's airplanes. Other times it's tanks. Or maybe it's a sniper that's up in a sniper's nest trying to take them out. It could be a machine gun or a cannon. Maybe it's mines like claymore mines or hidden buried mines under the ground. Maybe it's a grenade launcher. Whatever it is, they've got to identify the strength of their enemy. They've got to identify the thing that will hurt them the worst and take it out. That will give them the greatest chance of succeeding in their mission. All right. Now I want to next talk to you about this character that I saw in this movie. The movie's called Lady in the Water. It's a movie by the director M. Night Shyamalan. And in this movie, there's a character, this young guy, he's in his 20s or so. And it's really funny because this guy only works out with one arm. He has this huge bodybuilder-sized right arm, and his left arm is this dinky little scrawny noodle arm. That just, it's so funny because his whole body is kind of that small, skinny frame, but he's got this huge bodybuilder's arm just on one side of his body because he works that arm out all the time. So let's pretend that this guy is your buddy, and you've made a bet with him, and you lost the bet, and the punishment or the price you had to pay for losing that bet is that he gets to punch you in the stomach as hard as he can. But here's the catch. You get to tie up one of his arms so that he only can punch you in the stomach with one of his arms. So here's the question to you. Which arm are you going to tie up? Well, it's obvious you were going to tie up his strong arm, because if he punches you with that strong arm, it is going to hurt like crazy, could damage something, injure you, could even kill you. So you're going to stay away from that strong arm. You wanted to punch you with his weak, wimpy noodle arm. All right, here's the point. Every team and every athlete is just like this. They have a strength, but they also have a weakness. Okay? You need to obviously attack that weakness. That's how you score points on them. That's how you score punches and score takedowns and those kinds of things. You want to attack their weakness, but you want to tie up their strength. You want to neutralize it. You want to shut it down so they cannot use their strength against you. So let's get into some stories. We've been talking about this basketball story, this adult basketball team that we've been playing on. It's been running through the past few episodes, so I want to continue and conclude that story for you guys. So like I said, we were playing basketball against a team that we should have been beating. We were basically tied up at halftime, and I asked the guys if they wanted to apply some of these winning principles. They said, sure, let's do it. So we went through the first three. We said, find their weakness and attack it. stick with what's working, and neutralize their strength. So we did the first thing. We found their weakness, we attacked, and we got into the paint. We said, what's working? Well, we're scoring inside the paint. We're scoring on layups. We're scoring on short jump shots, assists inside down by the rim. And what's not working is shooting on the outside, shooting three-pointers. So we stopped shooting three-pointers. The last thing we did is to find their strength and shut it down. So how did we do that? Well, I went over to the scores table. I asked to see the score sheet, and I saw that 2 of their players had almost all of their team's points. These 2 guys had scored a ton of points. So that was their strength. I came back over to the bench there at halftime, and I said, guys, okay, we found their strength. Their strength are these 2 players. They have scored all of their points. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to play strong man defense on these 2 guys. We're going to put our 2 best defenders, or the guys who are at least willing to work the hardest, on these guys. And here's the plan. We want to deny them the ball. The more we can keep it out of their hands, the less they can hurt us, right? If they don't have the ball, they can't score. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to face guard these guys. You put your hand on their chest, you get between their arms, you make it to where their team doesn't want to pass to them because they're so covered up. You want to destroy their willingness to hustle because you're always going to out-hustle them, so they don't even want to work to get open to get the ball. We are going to shut down these 2 guys and make the other 3 players on the court be the ones to beat us. Well, that's exactly what we did. We shut those guys down so hard. I guarded one guy, one of my teammates guarded another guy, and we did everything we could to not let those guys score the rest of the game. And obviously, like I've told you in these past couple episodes, the end of that game, we ended up beating our opponents by more than 20 points because we attacked their weakness, we stuck with what's working, and we shut down their strength and stopped their scores. All right. Here's another basketball story for you guys. When I was in high school, my senior year, we were playing in the state tournament. Now, the team we were playing in the state tournament was a team out of Oklahoma City, and these guys were good. Earlier in the season, we played against them, and their point guard dropped 38 points on us, and they beat us by, 40-some points. They absolutely crushed us. It was embarrassing. So here we are in the semifinals of the state tournament. Whoever wins this game goes to the championship and has a shot at winning the state title. And we draw this team out of Oklahoma City. So our coach says, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. We are going to shut down their strength. We are going to shut down that kid that scored all those points against us. So he had me man up on this kid. And he said, your goal... It reminds me of the movie Hoosiers, where he told that one guy to guard their best player. And he said at the end of the game, he said, stick to him like bubble gum, and by the end of the game, I want to know what flavor he is, right? So he was just all up in his space there. So that was kind of my assignment. That was my mission for that game, to be all over that point guard, not let him score. All right, here's what happened. At halftime, we had completely shut out the point guard. He had not scored a single point. At the end of the game, he had only scored 8 points. And as a result, we won. We beat those guys in the semifinals. We went on to the state championship, and we beat a team in the state championship by 15 points, earning our title as state champions my senior year of high school. It was a thrill. But had we not neutralized their strength, had we not taken out their sniper, their strong arm, had we not done that, I would not have this story to tell you. We would have lost in that game. We would have gone home, not even making it to the championship game. All right, another story. What happens in baseball, especially Major League Baseball, when you've got a power hitter that has been absolutely punishing the ball when he comes up to the plate? What often happens? I don't know if you remember the home run contest back in the late 90s, early 2000s with Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. But it was absolutely amazing. These guys, every game they go out there, they're pounding home runs, trying for the home run record, and these guys are absolutely killing the ball. Well, what a lot of pitchers started doing when they saw these dudes up at the plate, do you remember what happened? They would walk these guys. They wouldn't even pitch to them. They would intentionally walk them, or they would maybe throw them a couple pitches, but nowhere near the strike zone. Pitchers were afraid of throwing to these guys because they were the strong arm on that team. They hit the ball so hard, and they had knocked so many balls out of the park. Pitchers, using their strategy, and managers for these teams, using their strategy to neutralize the strength of their opponent, they walked these guys, which is a a very common and oftentimes a very smart thing to do. This summer, playing in a men's softball league, I was playing and we had walked a couple guys, and I think we walked them. Anyway, they got the bases loaded, and this big old boy gets up to hit, and I told my pitcher, I said, this guy, he's got fire in his eyes. You could see it in the way he walked. You could see his first at bat. He just absolutely swung, for the fences, and he looked like he had the power to knock it out of the park. And I said, hey, pitcher, we've got to. It's fine if you walk this guy. I said 1 run is better than 4 runs. That would be kind of taking the bat out of his hands, neutralizing the strength of our opponent. I said, we don't need to give him all these runs. We're ahead by 6 runs right now, but if we give him 4, then we'll only be up by 2. So let's go ahead. It's okay if we walk this guy, I said. Well, we got 3 balls on him, trying to kind of pitch around him, and the very next pitch, our pitcher grooved it right down the middle of the plate. The dude went yard and knocked a grand slam home run, getting them up. It was 6-8 after their home run. We ended up pulling away. We had a really hot inning later on and scored about 12 runs, but it was dangerous. We went from being ahead by a good 6 runs to being ahead by only 2 because we did not neutralize the strength of our opponent. All right. What happens in the NBA when you've got a phenomenal scorer, when you've got a LeBron James, a Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant, a Shaquille O'Neal? What do teams often do? They do something called double teaming, right? They try to neutralize that threat. They will double team. They'll put their, first and foremost, they'll put their best defender on that guy, right? The guy they think has the best chance of neutralizing him, of holding him to a fewer number of points. They will try to shut him down. And then they tell their other guys that we need you on help defense. We need you, whenever that guy starts penetrating, starts getting to the rim, starts taking these shots, we need you to pull off your man and double team this guy to help shut him down. If your man scores, so be it. But if we think that if we can shut down their strongest guy, then that'll give us the greatest chance of actually beating this team. All right. In the NFL, same thing happens. When you've got a stud wide receiver, right, who just makes a ton of catches, ton of plays. We've been seeing it the last several years. Des Bryant. There's a lot of really good receivers in the NFL, but you see these teams. What happens? They will play a strong man with the safety zone, or maybe a linebacker zone, trying to shade to the side of this strongest receiver, trying to tell the other corners to, hey, peel off your route and undercut this guy, or help me double up on this receiver here and there, because we don't want him to beat us. We'll let one of the weaker or slower guys have more opportunities, and maybe we're hoping they drop the ball or something, but we don't want their good guy to get a bunch of catches on us, okay? Same thing with running backs. They will, teams, instead of allowing the running back to run all over the field, playing a tight man or playing a passing defense, they'll crowd the box, they'll fill the box and try to add extra bodies there in the box to prevent the run, to force them to throw or force them to get the runner outside. So these are techniques, these are tactics and strategies that you see professional teams in multiple sports using to do this very thing we're talking about here in this principle, which is shutting down their strength, which is tying their strong arm. The next question we need to ask is, how do we identify an opponent's strength? Okay, how do we identify it? There are 3 easy ways to do it, okay? First off, we're going to start with the obvious physical stuff. We're going to start with their size. Maybe they have speed. Maybe they have strength or power. Maybe they're incredibly quick, right? They either as a team as a whole, or maybe as individual players, okay? And we're going to get into some of the details on that here in a second. So 1, we're going to start with their obvious, their physical size. 2, we're going to look at their stats, see who's scoring. Look from previous games or your current game. You're going to find out who's scoring, how they're hurting you. And 3, we're going to look at their standout players, their leaders, their captains. We're going to look for the ones that the team looks to for leadership. Because sometimes the leader that galvanizes a team together, his biggest threat is not scoring against you. The biggest threat against him is his ability to unify his team. Okay, so that's something you got to look out for. So here we are. We're talking back to number 1. Start with the obvious. Their size, speed, strength, power, quickness, height, shortness, all that kind of stuff. These can all be strengths. In the game of tennis, maybe the player you're playing against has a real strong forehand, okay? So that's their strength. Maybe they just, when you get to that right side of their body, they absolutely crush it and can put it anywhere they want it. In MMA, maybe they're phenomenal at takedowns, or maybe they've got real heavy hands. They're good boxers, so they knock a lot of opponents out. In volleyball, maybe you got a big hitter, right? A really solid hitter that can absolutely blister the ball. They've got maybe they've got a player that has the most kills, or maybe you're looking for the setter's favorite hitter. Okay, so if you find that this one hitter is getting lots and lots of opportunities, that setter may favor them, and so that may be the strength that you need to look at neutralizing. Think about soccer. Maybe you've got a team that has just an incredibly strong right leg. You're looking, can absolutely kill the ball, like one of their strikers, one of their players. That may be their strength. Maybe their strength is one of their players. They don't hit really hard, but they seem to get lots and lots of shots on goal. Okay, so maybe that's the guy you want to key in on. Maybe it's the guy who's the most dangerous around the net, maybe for corner kicks or crosses. This guy has the ability to get up in the air, to get to where the ball is going to be, and put a head on it and put a shot on goal. Maybe that's their biggest strength, okay? Thinking of football, maybe they've got an excellent quarterback who is a great passer, who is very aware of the opponent's defenses, can read a blitz and call an audible. Maybe the team's strength isn't a very fast running back, just a freakishly fast, agile guy like a Barry Sanders or something. That may be the strength that you need to look at neutralizing. In basketball, their strength could be a big center. Maybe he's just like a Shaquille O'Neal type of center. That guy was just monstrous. Or it could be maybe it's something if you're across from a guy, a point guard or a guard, maybe he's an incredibly good shooter, okay? And they've got a guy that's really good from outside the three-point line. Another strength that you need to look at just on a smaller basis, on a one-to-one, man-to-man basis, is find out which-handed he is. Is he right-handed? Is he left-handed? Does he shoot right-handed? Does he predominantly dribble right-handed? If they use their right hand the most, well, you want to shade to that side and take away their strength, right? You want to slide over and eliminate their ability to drive past you or to shoot. Whenever you go up to challenge a shot, get your blocking hand out there towards their right hand so that you've got the highest chance of disrupting their shot and or getting an actual block. In baseball, maybe their strength is they have maybe the individual player or the team, maybe they're a bunch of fastball hitters, okay? They love hitting fastballs. Maybe they've got a power hitter like a Mark McGwire or one of these guys that absolutely kills the ball. Maybe they're a pull hitter. Maybe their strength is they can just destroy the ball, but it's all to one side of the diamond. These are strengths that are usually pretty obvious and easy to see. In hockey and lacrosse, you're looking at the player who has the most shots on goal, maybe the player who scores the most goals, or maybe the player who's the fastest on the field. These are obvious strengths that you need to identify so then you can then make a plan to neutralize them. Okay, so those are the obvious physical strengths. These things are easy to see. Next, we talked about stats. Whether it's from previous games that these guys have played and you got the stats from that, or whether it's the current game. Maybe you're at halftime and you've got current stats from today's game. You need to find out how they're hurting you. And using stats, using the stat book, finding out not only how they're hurting, who's hurting you, but how they're doing it, that's a way you can identify their strength, their current strength for that game. Next is their standout players or leaders. Like I said a little bit ago, if they've got a player who galvanizes his team together, who unites them together, synergistically, these guys can rally together and they will use that and they'll feed off each other's energy and they will just play lights out, play above their individual potential, and as a team will absolutely rock you unless you take out that one guy, that core guy that is galvanizing them all together. And I don't mean take out in like a cheating or illegal way. I mean neutralizing him with pressure, with talk, with getting in his head psychologically. There's a lot of ways distracting him from his goal as leader, as uniting his guys together. Okay. So those are the 3 ways that you can identify their strength. All right, so what do you do to neutralize it? First thing you got to do is identify it, right? And next thing you got to do is you fix it. That's what you do with the problem. You identify the problem, then you fix the problem. But until you identify it, then you don't know what problem needs fixed. Okay, so to identify it, you have to ask, in the past, how have these guys won against other teams? Or how's this opponent I'm facing off, how has he succeeded against other guys? How are they hurting us now? This is the present. I guess this is a game you're playing right now. How are these guys hurting us currently? And who is hurting us the most? All right? So you're looking at that player. You're looking at that play that they're running. You get the point. You're looking to find out how they've succeeded against you. And next is to fix it. You've got to develop a strategy or plan to tie up their strong arm. You've got to prevent them from using that arm, whether it's denying possession, taking away their shooting or driving hand, or staying in front of their shooting leg or shooting hand, not pitching to their strength. These are things that you've got to do these are strategies that you have to adopt to neutralize that strength. So let's get into some examples. In boxing or MMA, if your opponent keeps hitting you in the face with his right hand, okay, that just somehow keeps landing that right hand, well, then you've got to try something else. You've got to try some strategies to neutralize that guy's strength. Okay, here's some 5 strategies. 1, maybe get your hands up and guard your face more, right? That's real simple. Get your hands up there in the path of that right-handed punch he's throwing at you. Next, move your head to the left or right whenever you see his right hand moves. Maybe you're going to focus in on that hand a little bit more, keep your eyes on it a little bit more, be more aware of it. So whenever you see that thing twitch, you got movement to the left and right to get out of the path. 3, maybe get more distance between you and your opponent. Getting away, his arm's only so long, right? So if you back away from that arm, he's got less of a chance of hitting you with it, okay? Maybe you need to circle towards the other hand. If he's hitting you with his right hand, circle more towards his left hand, right? That increases the distance that he's got to travel. It gives you more time to see it coming and get out of the way. 5th, when he moves in close to start punching with his right, maybe you need to tie him up. You need to lock up with him. If it's boxing, you wrap him up, right, until the referee breaks you up. Or if it's MMA, maybe you can get in there and get an arm lock or a headlock, or maybe take a shot even. This may be your chance to shoot in. But these are strategies that you've got to look at, that you've got to adopt in order to tie up that strength of a boxer or an MMA fighter. All right, here's another example. Let's say you're playing baseball and the player on the other team keeps crushing the ball on you. Well, here's some options to try to prevent or reduce the damage this player is dishing out. So, obviously, intentionally walk him. That's one strategy. Next, you could throw at him or towards him. You don't have to throw hard. You don't have to try to hit him, because obviously you're going to give him a base. But put it in there close to him. Scare him a little bit. Maybe, if not scare him, at least distract him. Take his mind off of hitting. Okay, even a wild pitch from a pitcher. That take the single ball, because you're probably going to end up wanting to walk him anyway. But a wild pitch will now get that batter thinking, "Ooh, this guy might actually be so wild, I might get hit up here," and it distracts him from hitting. Okay, maybe he's an inside pitch hitter, and you got to change the location of your pitches. Maybe he likes them high, so you got to throw them low, or vice versa. Maybe you need to change up the speed of the pitch. If he's a fastball hitter, throw in some off-speed stuff, change up, curveball, knuckleball, drop ball. These are things you can do to change up that speed and to throw them off. Change the time of your delivery. This is one that I really like this. I did this a lot in high school and in college pitching. When you're in a batting cage and they've got that pitching arm, and every 15 seconds it throws another ball, right? That arm is spinning, and it grabs the ball and throws it. And so you can, and even if the ball's coming 90 or 100 miles an hour off that pitching machine, you can time it, because you just get the timing down, right? And you know when the ball's going to be across the plate based on what you've seen in the past, and so you can actually get your bat out there and hit the ball regardless of how fast it's coming. Okay, so what I've seen pitchers do in games is they get into this routine. They throw a pitch, they get the ball back, they walk back to the mound, they step on the rubber, they go through this little routine of getting their deal, and then they go through their windup, and it's the same pace every time. Their windup is the same pace. They pretty much, a pitch comes every 45 seconds or whatever the case may be. Okay. Well, what if you change up that delivery time, right? Maybe you speed up your windup a little bit. Maybe you give your catcher an indication, whenever I touch my hat like this, I'm coming with a fastball, every time. So as soon as you throw a pitch, you touch your hat, the guy knows you're coming right back with a fastball. You walk up, you step on the rubber, and as soon as the batter's in the box, you're already in your windup, right? And you are changing the pace. Or if you've done fast a few times, maybe you slow it down. You take a minute and you walk around, the mound a little bit. Maybe you pick up the rosin bag. You throw off his timing, and doing that gets his focus off of hitting. It throws off that timing, like we talked about on a pitching machine. Okay, maybe you need to get a different pitcher. Maybe the team has absolutely got your number and you're just having a bad day or for whatever reason. I remember playing baseball in college, and it's embarrassing to tell this story because it was heartbreaking for me, but this team out of Kansas had my number. They hit so many base hits. It was ridiculous. I barely made it out of the first inning, and we finally got it out. And even when I did get a ground ball to one of my infielders, we ended up booting it or something. It was the worst thing. We couldn't even get outs. In the second inning, I think I made it through like 1, maybe 2 outs before I finally got pulled. I mean, this is how bad it was. These guys were hitting everything I was throwing. It did not matter. Timing, speed, location, they were hitting it all. They just had my number. One time, I literally even threw the ball, a curve ball or kind of a drop ball, into the dirt in front of the plate. I literally tried to throw it that low and drop it down into the dirt. This guy goes down and after it skipped off the dirt, he hit the ball after it bounced off the ground and got a base hit. That's how bad this outing was for me. So what was the answer? What was the solution to this? Get me out of there, right? We needed a new pitcher. We needed somebody with different timing, different delivery, different angles, something, because those guys had my number. All right, so in order to neutralize that strength of them just beating the ball all around the park on us, we had to get a different pitcher. Next, maybe there are pull hitters, and maybe you can shift your defense to the side of the field where they're going to hit most of the balls. We've told this story in several different episodes and different podcasts here, but if a team is, let's say we're talking baseball here, so obviously if you've got a pull hitter, he's constantly pulling, maybe you shift your infield and put 3 infielders over there on the pull side of the field, on the left side. That way you have an extra player over there to stop the ball. Maybe you put your left fielder down on the line, your center fielder in left center, and your right fielder all the way up in right center. So you've shaded everybody over to the side of the field that they're going to most likely hit it on. That will help neutralize that strength of this hitter. All right, last example. Let's say you're playing ice hockey, and the other team has a very powerful right-handed goal scorer that leads the league in goals. Now, here are some ways you might try to mitigate his scoring ability, try to shut it down, all right? Well, first off, let's see here. I've got 5 different ways for you here. So, number 1, find out where he scores most of his goals from. This can be the right side, left side. Is it within 10 feet of the net, or is it outside 10 feet? Does he utilize fakes or feints, or does he juke a defender, cause misdirection? How is this guy scoring? All right, you've got to figure that out. Find out what he's doing. Because if he's scoring in close by the net, well, then you want to get him away from the net, right? If he's scoring slap shots from the left side of the ice, you need to get out there and get in the way of those slap shots. And whenever he's outside there, you want to put a man on him real close, just like we talked about in basketball, denying the guy the pass. Maybe that's your best option. Maybe playing a zone with in the basketball they call it a box and one, where you've got 4 guys, you play a big square pattern to fill the paint and defend that area, and then one man is playing man defense while the other guys are playing zone, and he's trying to face guard their best player to shut that guy down. Maybe that's what you need to do, to kind of do a box and one with hockey to shut down that great scorer. Another thing, and this is kind of part of that, second point, is maybe you put your best defender on him. Anytime they're on the ice, you see that, you line change, you put your best defender out there, and you shut him down with your best defender. Number 3, you deny him from ever receiving a pass. The fewer the touches possible, the better. The less time he has the puck on his stick, the less chance he has to score. Okay. Number 4, force him to his weak side by always taking away his right-handed shots and movements to his right. Okay, so he's got the puck. Well, get your body shield over towards his strong side, his right side. That gets your body between the puck and the net, okay? Force him to go to his left, okay? Next, play rough on this guy. Get physical. Maybe your strategy is to check him as hard and as often and as legally allowed to try to frustrate him and distract him, to keep him focused on you instead of hitting good shots, and keep him focused on, looking over his shoulder, being afraid he's going to get hit, instead of focusing on putting hard shots on goal. All right? Now, as you can see, there's many different ways to neutralize a threat, and you can do this in any sport. Always start by identifying how they're hurting you and then try out multiple strategies to neutralize that strength until you find one that works. Okay? All right. Let's get into the questions. The questions you need to ask yourself to help you identify their strength so you can shut it down is this. Who was their best player? Okay? That's easy. Finding out who's scoring the most. You're looking at stats. You're talking to other coaches. You're seeing who's scoring against you in this game. You're finding out, you want to know that player's name. Okay? So who is their best player? 2, who is scoring the most points for them? Okay? Their best player, I back up for a second here. Their best player may be their best player for a lot of reasons. He may be a super good defender, a super good passer, right? But he may not be the best scorer. So their best player might not be the one that's hurting you the most with on the scoreboard. So next is who's scoring the most points. Okay, so you got to know that. You got to look at your stats and find out who's scoring the most. Third, you've got to find out how they've been scoring. Is it a certain play they're running? I mean, if in football, are they running plays to the right-hand side? Is that how they're getting so many yards? Are they running a spread offense and passing? Do they have one receiver that's getting most of the receptions? How have they been scoring points? Fourthly, what can we do to prevent them from scoring the way they've been scoring? Okay? Like we said in MMA, if they're hitting you with one thing, you've got to prevent that. You've got to defend that so that they can't keep hurting you that way. So you've got to find out what you can do to prevent them from scoring. All right? So again, the 4 questions. Who's their best player? Who's scoring the most? How have they been scoring? And what can we do to prevent them from scoring? All right, guys, that concludes this episode. As always, during the course of this podcast, we want to be improving and finding better ways to help you. Now, if you see that we can improve this podcast, if there are questions you have, or if there are ways that we can better serve you and add value to you, please just reach out to us on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Science of Winning Podcast, or go to the search bar and just type in Science of Winning Podcast, and you'll find us there. And just a reminder from the start of this show, we have officially started our 1000 in 180 contest. We want to get 1,000 testimonials of how you've used these principles and gotten real results over the next 180 days. So go to our Facebook page and post your success story today. If you have a sport or a position that you would like us to analyze and break down for you and show you how to apply these winning principles, just let us know. Once again, reach out to us on Facebook, Science of Winning Podcast. Post your question there. We'll be happy to answer it either on Facebook or in a podcast episode. Now, I am super excited to hear about your dreams and to help you achieve them. If you want to do me a quick favor, think of 5 athletes, coaches, or parents of athletes that you think would benefit from this podcast, and send them the link to this podcast or this episode right now. Show them you care about their success by giving them this gift. As always, please subscribe to our podcast and give our episodes a rating so that we will know which ones you like and which ones we can improve on. Again, this is Lyndon Gortney, and you are listening to The Science of Winning.